Hello everybody, this is the module 1 of the autonomic nervous system. This module I have divided into 3 parts. The part 1 is the general overview of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. Second is the various receptors of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. And third is the special conditions, where I have talked about special organs and how the different cholinergic and the adrenergic system differs there. Okay, so let's get started. This I just kept on a lighter note. We always think that pharmacology is like studying the entire dictionary, but it is not so. Although there are various named drugs, but it will become easier as we go along with seeing the physiology that correlates with the pharmacology. Our scope of discussion in this module will be the autonomic nervous system and the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system per se. But we know that nervous system is divided into the central and the peripheral nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is a part of this peripheral nervous system. This is generally to give you an overview how the sympathetic and the parasympathetic differs from each other. The sympathetic system prepares us for any fight and flight conditions, and parasympathetic is the rest and digest. So the sympathetic, you can see there will be dilation of the pupil. It will prepare, the eye will, accommodation will be for the far view, far sight. And for parasympathetic, there will be constriction of the pupil, and the accommodation will be for near vision. The sympathetic will speed up the heart, and the parasympathetic will slow down the heart. We'll see how the conotropic, inotropic changes in the heart occurs with the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system when we see the special organ targets of this drug. So let's move forward. There are other things also which we will see. The sympathetic nervous system is basically it prepares the body for stress conditions. To remember here, it is the thoracolumbar outflow. The sympathetic is the thoracolumbar outflow, and the parasympathetic is the craniosacral outflow. So the sympathetic is from T1 to L2. Sometimes till L3 also it can extend. You can see what effects it has on the various systems of the body, that it will prepare us for emergency. This is the basic distinction of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. Very important to know here is the sympathetic system is the adrenergic system, which the neurotransmitter will be the epinephrine or the norepinephrine. And the parasympathetic system is the cholinergic. Acetylcholine will be the receptor. But one more important thing to be noted over here is whether it's the adrenergic system or the cholinergic system, the ganglia will always secrete ACH. Okay? Again, as I told you, the outflow of the sympathetic will be the thoracolumbar, and of the parasympathetic will be the craniosacral outflow. This one, preganglionic fibers, if you see of the sympathetic, is shorter, and this is of the longer. So this we will see as we move ahead. This is also a general overview. This is just a generalization so that if there is any distinction that you are told to draw between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system, you can give it properly. See, parasympathetic is the rest and digest form. This is very important that it will stimulate the digestion. And what sympathetic is, it will prepare the body for fight and flight. So once this is clear, everything becomes easy. I kept this. It is not a very important diagram because it's very difficult to understand essay because there is a lot of overlap. You can see that one thing you should note here, that is the sympathetic flow is the thoracolumbar outflow. That is the T1 to L2. And the parasympathetic is the craniosacral. Craniosacral is the 3, 7, 9, 10 cranial nuclei, and the sacral is S2 to S4. Okay. Now you will be like, oh my god, this is so much, I cannot just explode. So let's go and take one by one each system. So you can see here the sympathetic, the ganglia, the preganglionic fibers in the sympathetic is short. So we can, in other words, we can say that this ganglia is closer to the vertebrae and far away from the effector in the sympathetic system. Is just a different way to say it. And the parasympathetic, you can see this is the ganglia. The preganglionic fiber is longer, so it is away from the vertebrae and close to the effector organ, right? Okay. You can see here this whether it be the sympathetic system or the parasympathetic system, acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter in the ganglia, and the ganglia will always have the nicotinic receptor. This is the NN receptors that we will see. It is the part of the cholinergic system. So the ganglia is the part of the cholinergic system. Okay, and the parasympathetic will again produce ACH on the muscarinic or the nicotinic receptor, and the sympathetic will produce the norepinephrine in the alpha or the beta receptors, as you can see. So this explains it. This is just a same way of writing this in another form. Okay, this is the adrenal medulla. Is a different. It is a slight exception to the sympathetic system. This also will cover in the special organ part. Now, this is the this is showing the production of acetylcholine. You can see first the synthesis of the acetylcholine. This we will correlate with the next diagram that is in line. See here, glucose is giving up 2-pyruvate, and this is giving us acetyl coenzyme A. Now, acetyl coenzyme A will combine with choline to give acetylcholine. Now, this choline is transported by the choline transporter. Okay, choline is transported by the choline transporter. Now, from where this choline transporter is coming, I'll explain in a bit. This is the acetylcholine, which is broken up by the acetylcholine esterase that will give us the choline. I will explain it. So, you can see this is acetylcholine. It is packed up in the vesicles, and then it is released into the synaptic cleft. Now this will act on the postsynaptic membrane. There is the muscarinic receptor and the nicotinic receptor. Based on the location, this will act on the specific receptors. So it is what here it is written. See, there will be synthesis of the acetylcholine. Now this synthesis of acetylcholine, this is very important to know, because in the next module when we will talk about the drug targets, we will understand, see this transport, you can see the choline is transported by the choline transporter. It is a choline and the Na plus symporter. Yes, so this will be inhibited by hemicolinium. You can see this transport of choline is inhibited by the hemicolinium, right? The choline transport, no, the recycling of the choline, this is the rate limiting step. Means if this is stopped, there will be a major effect on the entire process that goes on. Next is, you can see the acetylcholine is uptaken by the vesicles. Then there will be release of the neurotransmitter. There will be binding in the postsynaptic membrane receptor, and then there will be degradation of the acetylcholine. Okay. Now let me take you to this part where I'll explain. See here. So suppose this is the acetylcholine esterase. This is the acetylcholine esterase molecule. This has a anionic part and the esteric part. Now acetylcholine is made up of ester bonds. Very important to know this. Okay. The choline binds here. So choline binds here. This is the position where choline binds, right? The acetylcholine is having ester bonds. This is the esteric part. So this breaks up the acetylcholine esterase into choline. This choline, as I showed you, is taken up by the choline transporter. This is taken up by the choline transporter. So you can see this part, and it is recycled back into the entire system. So acetylcholine esterase is having these three parts, these two parts in its structure. There is one esteric part and there is one anionic part. The anionic part is where the choline binds. Now choline is a positive molecule. Choline is a positive molecule, that is why it binds in the negative anionic side. And the ACH is having esteric bonds, it breaks up and choline is released. Okay? Alright. Let's move forward. Now this is the cholinergic system. We have seen the synthesis of acetylcholine, right? Now let us move forward and see various receptors which act on this cholinergic system. So we have to see there are two types of receptors. There is the muscarinic receptor. Yeah, so I was talking about the various receptors of the muscarinic system, right? So as you can see, this is your muscarinic receptor, the M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, yeah, and the nicotinic receptor. Very important to note here is the nicotinic receptor is the ion gated and the muscarinic is the G protein coupled. You can see in this muscarinic receptor there are 7 subunits. That is why it is known as the serpentine molecule. It spans the entire transmembrane protein in 7 subunits. Okay. Now let me take you through the structure and how functioning of this muscarinic and the nicotinic system. So let's follow along. Okay. So the cholinergic system, right? The cholinergic system is divided into the nicotinic and the muscarinic system. The nicotinic is again divided into the NN and the NM. And muscarinic is divided into M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, right? Okay. Very important to note here is M1, M3, M5. They are GQ coupled. And M2 and M4, they are G inhibitory coupled. NN, the nicotinic receptor, are ligand gated ion channels. Right? Ligand gated ion channels. Let me take you to the functioning of these parts. First, the nicotinic receptors. Okay, see here. This is the transmembrane protein, okay. Here is this nicotinic receptor. Here there are 2 binding sites. Nicotinic receptor, as I told you, they are ion gated. Ligand gate, ion channel. Ligand gated ion channels. They are ligand gated ion channels. So there is the position for this ACH molecule. There is the binding site for ACH. ACH here is the ligand. And there are ion channels. So once this ACH comes and binds here, this ion channels open. This ion channel opens, leads to the influx of Na+. Okay. So why it is called ligand gated ion channel? Because as the ACH binds, it opens the ion channels for the Na+ to go in. This is the nicotinic receptor. Okay. Next, let us go into the muscarinic receptor. See this. Muscarinic receptor, as I told you, they are G coupled. Right? See this. Suppose this is the entire, as I told you, M1, M3, M5. They are GQ coupled. So see the functioning here. This is the GQ protein. Here is the binding site for ACH. Now GQ takes in one GTP and converts it into GDP. Right? Now this GDP will act on a membrane protein known as phospholipase, right? This phospholipase will be activated and this will convert PIP2, that is phosphatidyl inositol diphosphate, into IP3 and DAG. Now what will IP3 do? it will act on the sarcoplasmic reticulum, okay, and increase the calcium levels. This calcium will bind to calmodulin, and they will form the calmodulin calcium complex to form entire complex. This will go and phosphorylate the protein, right? The DAG, what it will do is it will activate phosphokinase C. It will activate protein kinase C. This will also phosphorylate the protein, right? So this is the functioning of the GQ. This is the functioning of the GQ system. Next, let me take you to the G inhibitory. That is the M2 and the M5. The G inhibitory. What it will do is, this is the transmembrane protein. This is the membrane, the entire cell. Here there is the binding site for ACH, and here is the GI. Remember, all the G are the serpentine. They have 7 subunits. This is known as the serpentine molecule. All G protein are serpentine molecules. Now this GI, if I enlarge it, this will be a structure like this. There will be alpha unit, a beta, and a gamma, right? This will also take in a GTP and convert into GDP. GTP will be taken up, and this will break up into 2 parts: the alpha inhibitory, the beta, and the gamma part, right? This beta and gamma part will act on the transmembrane K+ channel, and it will cause the efflux of the K+. So resultantly, what will happen? There will build up of the negative charge in the interior of the cell. The alpha one, it will inhibit adenyl cyclase molecule. So it will inhibit the adenyl cyclase molecule. As we all know, adenyl cyclase takes up ATP, converts into CAMP. The CAMP will activate protein kinase A, and it will cause phosphorylation. So this entire process will be inhibited. The phosphorylation will be inhibited. This is the function of your GI protein. Okay, now let us move forward and see the location of H. This I'll come back a little later. See here, this is the thing which I have shown you. I have added this in the description box below. Here the receptors are the nicotinic receptor and the muscarinic receptor. As I told you, the nicotinic receptors are the ion channel ligand gated, and the muscarinic are the G protein coupled. The nicotinic are again divided into NN and NM. Now let me take you the function of the nicotinic receptor. See, as I told you, they are ligand gated channels. So this is this is the neuromuscular junction. So here what you will find NM type of nicotinic receptor. So the action potential comes, the ACH is coming. It is getting packaged into the vesicles. The calcium influx is taking place. It is pushing the ACH into the synaptic cleft. Now this ACH will bind to the NM receptor present in the postsynaptic membrane. Now as this binds, as I showed into the white box just now, that this is a ligand. The ACH here is the ligand. It will open the Na plus channels. Now the Na plus channel will be open. It will cause influx of the positive charge into the cell. So this was under the resting memory potential. It was under minus 70 millivolts. So it's an influx of positive charges. This from minus 70, it will raise up to your minus 55 millivolts. Just sometimes it is still minus 58 only. So minus 58 to minus 55 you can take. This will increase. The positive charge will build up. Now when this voltage reaches 55 millivolts, then the voltage gated Na plus channel is open, and there is a rapid influx of Na plus channel, and the action potential is triggered. So from minus 55 to minus 70 to minus 55, this what it increases due to the presence of the ligand gated Na plus channels when what it opens. That is known as the motor end plate potential. This motor end plate potential essentially it triggers the action potential. Also you see the autonomic ganglia, the same thing. The ACH is coming. It is getting packaged into the vesicles. There is calcium influx. The ACH is binding into the NN receptor in the postsynaptic cleft. So this is a ligand gated channel. It will open up the Na plus channel, which are ligand gated Na plus channel. There is a build up of positive charge. Again from minus 70 millivolt it raises to minus 55. This is known as the excitatory postsynaptic potential. Again, just like explained before, it helps in so once it reaches minus 55 millivolts, the voltage gated Na plus channel opens, and there is a rapid influx of Na plus ions into the cell. That will trigger the action potential. Okay. So this is the function of the nicotinic receptor, as I explained to you. That will be the N will be present in the autonomic ganglia, and also it will be present in the adrenal medulla, and NM is present in the neuromuscular junction. Okay, next let us come to the muscarinic receptor. As I told you, muscarinic receptors, the M1, M3 and M5, they are the GQ coupled. How they function, I have told you. GQ, it's a serpentine molecule. Okay, so as I was discussing the functioning of the muscarinic receptor, so as I told you, M1, M3, M5, they are GQ coupled. M2 and M4 are G inhibitory coupled. How this M1, M3, M5 works with the help of the GQ coupled, how the GDP acts on the phospholipase and breaks up into IP3 and DAG, and what are the basic functions have been discussed. The M4 and the M5, the M2 and the M4 are the G inhibitory coupled, and they break up this G inhibitory molecule into the alpha and the beta and the gamma subunit. What are the various functions I have showed you. This page has also been added in the description box below so that you can get reference from it. Now my basic idea of discussion here is your various locations of the various muscarinic receptor. So see here, muscarinic receptor, I told you there is M1, M2, M3, M4 and M5. Now M4 and M5, they are present in the CNS. They are concerned with analgesia, arousal, and memory. This is not in our scope of discussion here. We'll focus on these M1, M2, M3, right? Okay. So M1. M1 is present in the CNS with the same function, and it's important, it's present in the gastric glands, in the parietal system. Okay. The parietal cells, it acts on the parietal cells. Suppose this is our stomach. Now here, there is the presence of gastric glands. The parietal cells basically. What it will do is the M1 receptor is present in this parietal cell. It will stimulate this parietal cells to produce more HCl. Also, it has also a small stimulatory action on the chief cells. Chief cells which will produce pepsinogen. But major action is on the parietal cells to promote the release of HCl, and a minor stimulatory action on the pepsinogen by the chief cells. This is your M1. Now let us come to the M2. Very important location of M2 is our heart. Suppose this is the heart. Let me divide it into chambers. Here is the SA node. Here is the AV node, the bundle branch, and the Purkinje fibers, right? Okay. This is the myocardium, generally the ventricles. Now what it will do is, the M2 receptor present here, it will slow down the SA node. So it will stop the firing of the SA node, so the rate decreases. That is, the sinus rhythm decreases. Okay. AV node, what happens? AV node is concerned with conduction velocity. So it delays the AV node conduction. Again, so there will be fall in the conduction velocity. Also, it will be acting on the myocardium, that is the ventricles, and it will decrease the contractility also. So this, on the overall, it will decrease the functioning of the heart. Not decrease the functioning, it will decrease the sinus rhythm rate, it will decrease the conduction velocity, it will decrease the contractility, right? Okay. Now let us come to the M3 receptor. M3 is present in various locations. Very important is the glands. So exocrine gland, it will stimulate the secretion. Okay. Then bronchi, it will cause bronchoconstriction. It will act on the bladder. So this will promote micturition. So how it will promote micturition, I have talked about in the specific on the bladder part. Then also the defecation, the anal sphincter, it will relax the anal sphincter. Okay. Very important here is to know. Yes, so I was telling you its function. The function of the muscarinic center on the blood vessels. So these blood vessels, they are surrounded by contractile cells, right? Now this, what I told you, this M3 is present in the blood vessels. This is a GQ coupled receptor. So when it increases the calcium level, causes contractility of this contractile tissue. This will cause vasoconstriction. Right? Now what happens if you see another, there's increase of calcium. Whenever there's an increase of calcium, this will activate the eNOS. eNOS, you know it is what? It is endothelial nitric oxide synthase. So this will increase the nitric oxide. So when nitric oxide increases, it's a potent vasodilator. And the vasodilation effect is much more than the vasoconstriction. So the net result is vasodilation. Okay? Fine. Now let us move on with our presentation. Okay. You can see the reference in there. Now I am taking you to the adrenergic system. The adrenergic system, as you can see, it is the same. There will be synthesis of the adrenergic system is by the norepinephrine and the epinephrine. That is the neurotransmitters there. So, I am taking you to the process of the synthesis of the norepinephrine so that when we discuss the various drug targets in the next module, it becomes clear. So you can see this tyrosine, it is hydroxylic to dopa. The dopa is converted into dopamine, and this is taken up in the storage vesicle. The storage vesicle, then there will be the release of the neurotransmitter. The dopamine will be converted into norepinephrine. Okay, and then there will be the release. This will be acting on the postsynaptic membrane. That will be either the alpha or the beta receptor, right? Now this norepinephrine, which is present in the synaptic cleft, there will be the removal of the norepinephrine, and then there will be metabolism of the norepinephrine with the help of the COMT and the MAP. Okay. This is how the entire process goes on. This is the production of the norepinephrine. Now I am taking you to the receptors of this adrenergic system, the alpha and the beta receptors. So alpha, as you know, there's alpha 1 and alpha 2, and beta, there's beta 1, beta 2, beta 3. Alpha 1 is a GQ coupled receptor, and alpha 2 is a G inhibitory, and beta all are G stimulatory receptor. So the function of the GQ and the GI has already been discussed, the G coupled receptors in the part of the muscarinic system. Let me take the receptors I told you. Here you see. Now, let me take you through. Suppose. Now, when we are preparing for fight and flight, so adrenergic system is fight and flight, right? Let me take you to the various blood vessels. Suppose this is the blood vessel area. Okay. Here I will talk about alpha 1 and beta 2 receptors. Okay. See, blood vessels. Just talk about the skin. Then let us talk about the GI system, the kidneys, the skeletal system. Now, if you are fighting or running away from a lion, do you need a lot of blood going through your skin? No. So there should be vasoconstriction. That will be mediated by alpha 1. Okay. So the blood vessels of the skin, the vasoconstriction. So you can see there will be pallor in the skin. Right? Now GI. When you are running away, do you need to digest food? No. So there will be no digestion. That is, you can say not no digestion, there will be impairment of digestion. Here also alpha 1 will be there. Kidneys, do you need to produce a lot of urine when you are running away? No. Again there will be alpha 1. So the blood flow to the kidney will be reduced. But you need all this blood to be directed to your skeletal blood vessels so that you have more energy and you can run. So here there will be presence of beta 2 receptors, right? That will cause vasodilation and increase the blood flow to skeletal muscles. Next one. Let us talk about the heart, of the blood vessels of the heart and the CNS. See, if heart is always under the control of the sympathetic system, it will be very difficult for the heart to maintain its rhythm. So the heart basically has auto-regulation. The blood vessels going to the heart has both alpha 1 and beta 2. Okay, so this is under auto-regulation. That is, whenever there will be decrease in oxygen or there will be increase in adenosine, the heart will have maintain its own rhythm, right? The CNS, on the other hand, the CNS. This is about the blood vessels which is going to the heart. It has specific functions on the heart by B1 receptors that we will see. Now CN is also under myogenic regulation. There also presence of both alpha 1 and beta 2 receptors. So the blood flow to the CNS is not compromised, right? Next one, let me take you to the beta 2 receptors. Sorry, let me take the beta 2 receptors, as I told you, it is in the blood vessels. Let me take you to the beta 1 receptors. Only two locations of the body has beta 1 receptor. This is the heart and this is the JG cells, streptococcus cells. So what will happen, as I already told you, heart, the chambers are like this. Here is the SA node, here is the AB node, here is the bundle branch and the Purkinje fibers. What will happen? The B1 will be present here to increase the sinus rhythm. It will act on the SA node increase. It will increase the function of the AB node. That is, AB node conduction velocity will be increased. It will act on the myocardium, increase the contractility of the heart. Okay. Now let us take to the JG cells. Where is the JG cells present? It is present in the kidneys. The JG cells will be stimulated. Whenever what will happen? Whenever there is decrease in the blood volume, the JG cells will be stimulated by the beta 1 receptor. So JG cell will increase the production of renin, and this will trigger the RAS mechanism of the body. Okay. This was beta 1. Next is the beta 3 receptor. The beta 3 receptor is present in one important site, that is the adipose tissue. Okay, the adipose tissue promotes lipolysis. It will break up into glycerol and 3 fatty acids. So you know this is the glycerol structure with 3 fatty acids. So it will cleave into fatty acids and glycerol, right? Okay, this will promote process of lipolysis. Also, beta 3 it is showing that we know that in the bladder, the detrusor muscles, this is sphincter. So when is a sympathetic stimulation, micturition will be inhibited. So this detrusor cell, this will relax. This is by B2 and part by B3 also. Now sphincter, it has to constrict, right? Sphincter has to constrict. This will be by the alpha. Okay. Next one is the alpha 2. Alpha 2 is inhibited. So alpha 2, as I was telling you, alpha 2 is present in two locations. The pancreas is present in the postsynaptic nerve fibers. Okay, it's present in the CNS. Now let me take you to the function it has in the pancreas. Now pancreas, you know, has alpha cells and beta cells. Beta cells is for the production of insulin, and this is for the production of glucagon. I'm talking about alpha 2 cells. Okay? Alpha 2 receptors. Now, in sympathetic system, do you want to break down? Do you want anabolic loss, that is glucose is converted into a higher form of storage molecule? No, we need more of glucose. So this will be inhibited. Production of insulin will be decreased. Glucagon, as you know, it makes us available. The catabolic process makes us available the more of glucose. So glucagon will be stimulated. This is various basic function. Now let me go forward with the presentation. This is the same thing. I've also added this in the description box. You can check it. I've added various locations where this is present. Right? Okay. Now this is the special cases which I was talking about, the special areas and how the autonomic nervous system complement or they antagonize with each other. Heart I already told you, but let me take you again there. So I'll write sympathetic here, parasympathetic here. This is the heart. Here is the SA node, here is the AV node, the bundle branches and the Purkinje fibers and the myocardium. What happens in parasympathetic, we already told, SA node action decreases, so rate falls. AV, conduction velocity decreases, so velocity of conduction falls. Also contractility of the heart decreases. Contractility falls. Sympathetic, what will happen? The rate will increase. Conduction velocity will increase. Contractility of the heart will increase, right? Now, whenever we talk about heart, there are 4 things that we have to take into consideration. There is chronotropic effect, chromotropic effect, ionotropic effect, and lusotropic effect. Right? So chronotropic effect considers the rate of the heart. That is maintained by the SNO. Yes. Ionotropic effect is by the conduction. Chromotropic is by the conduction velocity. It's maintained by the AV node. Ionotropic effect is by the contractility of the heart. And chromotropic effect is by the heart relaxation. Now, sympathetic system will increase the SA node conduction, parasympathetic will decrease it. Sympathetic will increase the conduction velocity, parasympathetic will decrease it. Sympathetic will increase the contractility, parasympathetic will decrease it. One important thing is about the lusotropic effect. Now, what happens in the sympathetic system, as the rate is more, what happens, the sarcoplasmic reticulum, it takes in the calcium. Also, the relaxation is more in case of the sympathetic system. So, lusotropic effect is also more in the sympathetic system. Actually, this is paradoxical because as the heart is pumping more, rate is more, the rate of relaxation should be less. But the sarcoplasmic reticulum, it segments the calcium ions and there is more relaxation. Okay. Let us move forward with this. Okay. Moving on with our special organs. This is the supply, the autonomic supply of the eye. So the parasympathetic supply, as you can see, it is coming from the ciliary ganglion, and the sympathetic is coming from the superior cervical ganglion. In case of the sympathetic system, it is an emergency situation, so there should be dilation of the pupil as well as there should be far vision, right? So this is acting, if you see the sympathetic system is acting on the alpha 1, the radial muscles, that is the dilator pupil. This will cause dilation of the pupil. In the contrast, parasympathetic, there should be the constriction of the pupil. So this is going to your constrictor pupillae and this the sphincter pupillae, okay, and this will constrict the pupil, right? Okay. One more important thing is with the relation of accommodation. So this is the eye, the lens, suspensory ligaments, the ciliaris muscle. Right. Now, in case of sympathetic innervation, sympathetic there has to be far vision, so that when we are running away from any danger, we have to see all the options available. So we need far vision. So for far vision, the lens should be flattened. There should be flattening of the lens. So what should happen? The ciliaris muscle should relax. So it's relaxation of the ciliaris muscle. But when there is parasympathetic stimulation, we are okay with near vision. So the lens can be more rounded. So here the ciliaris muscle constricts. Okay. And the constriction of the ciliary muscle, ciliaris muscle in parasympathetic is 2M3. Okay, so moving on with our discussion with special systems, special organs. See, this is the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder under the parasympathetic control, it will cause micturition, that is, it will stimulate the micturition reflex. So you can see here the M3 receptors will be acted upon in the parasympathetic system. This will cause detrusor contraction, and also there will be relaxation of the sphincter, and that is basically not through the cholinergic system, that is through the NO mediated system. Okay, and in the sympathetic supply, so micturition will be impaired. Okay, in that case, the detrusor muscle, there will be relaxation. So this is mediated by the B3 receptor. This I'm talking about the sympathetic system. And the internal sphincter, there will be contraction by the alpha receptor, so that there is no urination during the fight and flight conditions. Moving on further, if you see the sweat glands, sweat glands, there is an exception. It is sympathetic as well as cholinergic. Here, the major neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. So instead of being epinephrine, it is acetylcholine. Okay, so that is why they will respond to cholinergic agent as well as alpha and beta adrenergic stimulants. So this is because it is the part of the sympathetic system and it has acetylcholine as the neurotransmitter. Okay, moving on. This is the part of the adrenal medulla. As I told you, adrenal medulla, before coming into the adrenal medulla, the sympathetic system does not have a ganglia. Okay, so this ganglia is formed inside the adrenal medulla. So you can see the preganglion sympathetic fibers of the spinal cord. They come into the adrenal medulla, and here they will secrete their respective neurotransmitter. So you can see the sympathetic system, there will be production of acetylcholine into the adrenal medulla, and then the adrenal medulla will produce adrenaline and noradrenaline. So mediator here, in case of the adrenal medulla, it is not noradrenaline, it's acetylcholine. That is the difference. There is no ganglia, there is no ganglia before the medulla. There is an intramedullary ganglion, as well as the adrenal medulla will be stimulated by the acetylcholine, and it will produce adrenaline and noradrenaline. Major part is adrenaline. Moving on into the male sexual response. So important thing to note here, the erection is by the parasympathetic system and the ejaculation is by the sympathetic system. So let me take you through this part. Yeah, just imagine. So this is the cross section of the penis that I'm drawing. Okay, so it's corpora cavernosa, corpora spongiosum. Okay, now if you remember, there was the penile arteriole here in the center, right? And surrounding it was the erectile tissue, right? Okay, so what it will do is, the parasympathetic system, it will cause vasodilation of these arterioles. So it will cause vasodilation of the arterioles, and it will decrease venous return. Okay. Also, together with this ACH, there is also a function of NO, nitric oxide. Okay. What will NO do? NO will relax the arterioles. This will relax the arterioles. So once the blood enters into the arterioles, there will be the erectile muscles will be stimulated, right? Erectile fibers will be stimulated, and then there will be erection. Okay. Next one, if you see, in case of ejaculation, if you remember, this is your let me draw the structure and then I'll explain. So it's a very schematic diagram I have shown. So this is the testis, okay? This is the epididymis, caudal end of the epididymis. This one is this is the prostrate gland, and this is the seminal vesicle. Now what will happen in sympathetic system, there it will stimulate ejaculation, right? So what happens here, you see, this will be stimulated. There will be contraction all along there will be contraction. So the prostate also, there will be alpha 1, so that the prostate secretion as well as the seminal fluid secretion come into it. So all along there will be alpha 1 receptors. Okay, this is the sympathetic system. Very good. Next, so this is what it is written here. You can see the erection is controlled by the parasympathetic system. So the activity on the penile arterioles, there will be vasodilation. Also with parasympathetically, the NO is there in addition. This will relax the arteries. This will relax the trabecular meshwork, and this I will act on both the corpora cavernosa and the corpora spongiosum. And veins are compressed, so venous return is decreased. So what happens? The major blood comes into the arterioles, and this causes the erectile tissues to get stimulated. Now you can see here, this is the dual innervation in case of sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. There's cooperative effects. There's cooperative effects by parasympathetic sympathetic system. On the salivary glands, if you see the parasympathetic system, it stimulates the serous cell secretion, and sympathetic, it secretes the mucus cell secretion. So sympathetic makes the saliva thick, it makes it more mucus. The water content decreases. Whereas in case of parasympathetic, the serous content increases. So it becomes more, the consistency decreases. Okay. Next, coming to the ANS cooperation is best seen in the control of the external genitalia. As I told you, parasympathetic system causes vasodilation, so there will be the erection of the penis as well as the clitoris, and the sympathetic fibers causes ejaculation of the semen in the male and reflex peristalsis in the females, right? Okay. Here the antagonistic effects. So what happens is, in dual innervation, we talk about the cooperative effects and the antagonistic effect. Cooperative effects is how they are potentiating each other's function, okay, and the antagonistic effect is how the effect opposes to each other, right? So what happens in heart? We saw that sympathetic, there is a positive chronotropic agent, positive inotropic, dromotropy, all things increases in the sympathetic system as we saw in the schematic diagram of the heart. And parasympathetic, the heart rate decreases, the conduction velocity decreases, the contractility decreases in the case of the parasympathetic system. All right. If you see in the pupil also, I showed you that in case of the sympathetic system, there is dilation of the pupil by the pupillary dilator muscle through the alpha 1 receptors. Yes. And the parasympathetic system, it constricts the pupils or constrictor pupillae, right, to the M3 receptors. And also the sympathetic system takes us to the far vision, and parasympathetic near vision. So as we wind up this chapter, this module, this is just a summary. You can see the somatic system is a single motor neuron, and in the effector cells, it is acting through the ACH neurotransmitter. Coming to the sympathetic system, you see there is a exception in the sympathetic system which is pertaining to the sweat glands, right? So sweat glands, the postganglionic fiber also releases ACH. Though it is a part of the sympathetic system, it produces ACH, okay, in the effector organ. And sympathetic generally will have alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2 receptor. Only sweat glands will have muscarinic receptor, right? Coming to the parasympathetic system, again, there is preganglionic fibers. In the ganglia, all the ganglia will be producing the ACH, and there will be the NN receptors in the ganglia, right? And the postganglionic fiber will produce ACH acting on the muscarinic receptor. Coming to the adrenal medulla, the ACH will be produced in the adrenal medulla. It's intramedullary. You can see there is no ganglia before the organ. You can see here there is a ganglia before coming into the effector organ. Here the ganglia is the intramedullary ganglion, and this will release epinephrine and norepinephrine into the circulation. Okay. That is a brief overview. And sympathetic, you will see the preganglion fibers are shorter, parasympathetic preganglion fibers are longer. So with this, we'll wind this module 1.